Well, hello everyone. It is me, Adrienne Lee, the Wandering Art Historian, welcoming you back to the Wandering Art Historian YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. It has been a while, hasn't it? Well, I'm so glad that you're back because I've got a ton of great stuff to share with you. If you've noticed a different format, that's because it's a brand new web series, How to Read a Movie. Who doesn't love movies? I love movies, you love movies, so let's talk about them. And if this sounds kind of familiar, How to Read a Movie, I sure hope so, because I did a whole web series back in the day titled How to Read a Painting. And we ended up with a ton of videos where we looked at colors, symbols, and stories in famous works of art. We talked about how artists use color, symbols, and stories to kind of tell a story or give us clues as to how to interpret a painting. And we're actually going to apply all those principles to film. So every video, we're going to talk about a different famous film using colors, symbols, and stories as clues to unlock the mystery of the film. And you may notice I've also used the word we quite a few times already. Yeah, that's because this is not going to be a lecture. It's actually going to be a conversation. So I'd like to introduce my guest cinephile. You'll see a new guest cinephile every video to discuss the films with me. This video's guest cinephile is Jenn Schroeder. Jenn, you want to give a wave? Yay! Let's start with Jenn, shall we? She's going to talk about films with me today. Sure, Citizen Kane is great, but Jenn believes the greatest movie ever made is Rear Window. Ooh, I love that. She says an underrated film that she thinks everybody should see is Doubt, and of course, what an amazing cast. And a movie that everyone loves but she hates is Titanic. And I gotta say, I kind of see your point, Jenn. What is the film we will be discussing today? We're going to talk about At Eternity's Gate, directed by the great Julian Schnabel, released in 2018. This is kind of a big deal because Jenn is also an art historian, kind of like yours truly here. Yeah. We go way back. And so we're going to use our art historical knowledge to also break down this incredible film that's dedicated to the life of Vincent van Gogh. Just a heads up, spoiler alert, if you have not yet seen At Eternity's Gate, just pause the video, go watch it real quick, and then come right back, because nothing is off the table. We're going to talk about plot, we're going to talk about characters, and we'll probably give away the ending. So you have been warned. Jenn, thank you so much for participating in this video and talking about this incredible movie with me. I'm so excited.
I'm happy that you invited me. I always love talking about art with you and movies.
This film is really special because, like I said, we both have an art historical background. We both love art. And I think it's safe to say we both love Vincent van Gogh. And despite the fact that there have been quite a few iterations of Vincent's life portrayed over the years, this one's very unique and special. And part of the reason for that, I think, has to do with the director, Julian Schnabel, being a visual artist himself. For viewers who don't know, he came to prominence in the 1980s and 90s, definitely part of that New York City art scene, hung out with Basquiat, Haring, Warhol in the 80s. In fact, Julian Schnabel's first directorial film was about his friend Jean-Michel Basquiat, so you may remember that from the 90s. We talk about colors a lot, we talk about symbols a lot, we talk about stories, and this particular film gives us the opportunity to blend paintings and cinema Specifically, if you think about it, this is the painting At Eternity's Gate by Vincent van Gogh. Oof, that gives us the title of our film. Jen, I mean, the feeling behind this painting is kind of rough, don't you think? Like, what do you think Vincent's state is?
Yeah, I mean, this painting was done I think about 3 months before Vincent van Gogh died. So, and it's just such a sad painting. You know, you just really feel the man's distress and suffering, and it's, you know, the movie itself, you feel a lot of that as well. So, yeah, it's definitely not a feel-good painting.
No, for sure. Good point, which is interesting because there are lots of parts of the film that are really beautiful and uplifting. And I think a lot of it has to do with the use of color. I mean, the color that jumps out at me here is yellow, but also the vibrancy of the color. Jen, what did you notice?
Yeah, it's just, so Vincent had a deep love of nature. He was in awe of it. He loved painting outdoors as much as possible. And you can see here his love of nature. And in the film, when he's in nature, the colors are kind of larger than life. I mean, just the brightest yellow that you can imagine. And the greens are very vibrant, the cobalt blues. So this, to me, he's just feeling the wind and the sunshine, and you can really feel that warmth coming through by that golden yellow. And it reminds me of the yellow that he used a lot on his palette. So a lot of the colors in the movie kind of look like they're straight off his palette.
For sure, for sure. Then we notice that there are some scenes that are dramatically different, though, when it comes to the beautiful colors that we see when he's immersed in nature. There are other times where it feels dark.
Yeah. And I think Schnabel did a really good job. I think you can tell he's a visual artist because he uses color so masterfully. And in this, it just has that kind of sickly green feeling. This is when he's at the asylum and he's in a straitjacket, and just the shadows and that dark green light or green color. I was saying it reminds me of the color of absinthe, which a lot of people said was one of the things that contributed to Vincent going mad. So it's just that real kind of institutional green, which you really get the feeling of. It's a disturbing color, I feel.
Absolutely. Here, I feel very trapped almost personally when I look at something like this. I did notice, like you said, the color does seem like it's turned up a couple of notches. You know, it's so vibrant and overwhelming.
Yeah.
And some of those scenes, you don't realize how vibrant and overwhelming they are until you see the scene after. You know, like we know that yellow definitely plays, the color yellow itself, not only so profound in this film, but in Vincent's life. You know, that's his color. He lived in the yellow house, the sunflowers, what have you. And I think the color yellow is almost like its own character in the film. And there's that really cool scene where Vincent and Gauguin are in the church, and Gauguin's like, dude, I gotta go. And Vincent freaks out, but you don't realize just how yellow the church is until Vincent leaves the church. He opens the doors, and then he's immediately surrounded by this blue color. And it's like he feels so alone, I guess, or like hurt that Gauguin would want to leave, you know? And like you said, I think part of the reason why the color comes through so well in this film is, you're right, the director, Julian Schnable, as a visual artist, understands how color can really draw in the viewer, but also express the feelings of the characters involved.
Right, yeah.
Very powerful symbolism through this whole darn movie. Jen, When we think of Vincent, we think of sunflowers, but we don't necessarily think of these sunflowers now, do we?
No, this to me really hit me. So when he goes to the south of France to paint because he wants to paint the vibrant colors there, but he gets there in winter. And when he gets there, he's walking through the sunflower field and all the sunflowers are dead. But as he's walking, the camera shows his feet walking, and as he's walking past the sunflowers and into this beautiful golden field, the colors get more and more vibrant as he walks. So, but when you see this, you think, again, a sense of foreboding, kind of like in that picture, the painting at Eternity's Gate with the old man. You think of, death and foreboding, so this was a little bit of a shocker, but then he walks into the field and begins painting, and the color is golden and vibrant again.
I wholeheartedly agree. Would you say like nature is in itself a symbol? Because I mean, you can see it in a lot of Vincent's paintings. He really didn't feel comfortable until he was out in nature. And
right,
like this.
Definitely. And I think not only like the sun, but also the wind. And here he's really feeling south of France has those Mistral winds. And he's, sometimes the wind feels very freeing for him, I think, like here. And then there's other times where it's more menacing, where he's walking and the wind is blowing very violently, and it'll blow his canvas away as he's painting. So the wind, I think, was used a lot in this movie as a symbol of the power of nature and the temperament of nature.
I love that so much. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a good way to also describe Vincent himself, where he's sometimes wildly pleasant to be around and sweet and kind, and yet his temperament, like you said, can change and more disturbed and, even like unsettling and erratic maybe. You mentioned another symbol, like, because you said he did a lot of walking in this film, and I gotta say, there's good chunks of the movie where we're looking down at his feet,
Yeah.
Why do you think we see a lot of walking?
I think he said before that he didn't really like to sit still. And if you watch him painting, he's very frantic when he's painting, and he often completed his paintings in one sitting. And I think just there are a lot of shots of his feet of walking, so he's always kind of on the move. And there's also, and here he's painting his shoes, and then there's a lot of close-ups of his hands also. And when I saw that, I thought of just the act of painting, the painter's tool, your hands. So a lot of close-ups of hands and feet in this movie, and Vincent's viewpoint, his view of his hands and his view of his feet. So you almost feel like you're inhabiting his body.
For sure. I have to say, I noticed rewatching this film, there were a lot of scenes when you're clearly in his spot, like his perspective, and he's talking to someone, and they're really close to the screen, and it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, like a little unsettled. So you have to wonder, maybe that's also how Vincent may have felt talking to people. He's like trying, but more of
kind of that feeling you get when there's a close talker, where you're kind of like anxious. You're kind of like, okay, back up.
I totally agree. Do you think this particular film? Well, okay, so it's called At Eternity's Gate. We've talked about the painting itself feels very sad, very down, and it is painted like right before his death. What are some like repeated, okay, so in paintings, certain paintings are painted over and over again, the birth of Venus, the nativity, what have you. when you look at this particular film, are there any repeated stories that jump out at you that we revisit again and again in cinema?
Well, I think just the story of Van Gogh itself. There's been so many movies made about him, and but I think this one is different in that it's there's not a lot of dialogue, as we were saying earlier. It's a lot of, you're focusing on the visual, and it's to me it feels like you can tell again that Julian Schnabel, who's a visual artist, made this movie because there is such a focus on the act of painting. And to me, also, this is probably the most empathetic kind of version I've seen of Vincent, and the loneliest. I mean, most of the movie, he's not talking. And when he does talk, he's talking about how people don't like him, or he's talking to someone who doesn't like him or appreciate him. So there's just a very, there's a lonely feeling to this movie. So it's sort of a different depiction, and also, spoiler alert, the ending. The ending is quite different from what we're used to, where the Schnabel depicts his death as more foul play instead of suicide. So
I think that's a bold choice. I think that it proves that art historians still want to debate whether it was suicide or some freak accident or foul play. I think it's cool that because I'll put myself out there, I lean more towards freak accident, foul play than I do suicide personally, just in my life and in the research that I've done. I agree with you. This is probably the loneliest version of Vincent we've seen portrayed in film and television. I have to give a shout out to my favorite scene in the film is with the scene with Vincent and the priest, played expertly by the incomparable Mads Mikkelsen. Because that's kind of another repeated story. You're right. The story of Vincent, we love to tell the story of Vincent van Gogh. We're obsessed. But what's so great about this scene is that the priest has met his match when he sits with Vincent, because Vincent knows religion. He studied. He was thinking of becoming a pastor, just like his dad. He was raised in a religious household. So it kind of made me think that the story of Jesus is a story that's told over and over again. We're obsessed with that story as well. And in this case, the priest is asking Vincent outright, like, A, you think you're a painter, and 2, you think that's a gift from God, and you paint these paintings. And this priest is like, just totally disgusted and repulsed by his artwork. And Vincent is like, yeah, but anything I say to kind of defend myself, I feel like I'm also incriminating myself, which is kind of like what happened with Jesus and Pontius Pilate. So that's just a great scene that ends with the priest leaving the painting behind and turn to the wall so that no one else has to look at such a terrible painting, when I think it's quite a lovely painting, personally. I don't know, I like it.
Such a heartbreaking scene. It really is. I mean, he looks so lonely here. And something that occurred to me while you were talking is, in Jesus's lifetime, he wasn't appreciated as he is after his death. And that's kind of like Vincent. I mean, people just they thought he was, a little crazy, a little radical. He wasn't appreciated until after he died. And now he's one of the most recognized artists in the world. People love him.
I agree. I think he has this line of dialogue that says, I think I paint pictures for people who haven't been born yet.
Yeah.
And that every time feels like an arrow in my heart. But
ahead of his time.
Ahead of his time, for sure. I just want to say thank you, Jen. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being my guest cinephile to discuss this incredible film about an incredible artist. Jen, do you have any parting words for our viewers?
Just if you haven't seen it, it's streaming on Showtime. If you have Showtime for free, and it's you know I have to say it's probably not a movie for everyone, the average moviegoer. But if you have a love of visual arts and Vincent van Gogh and the art of painting, I think you'll really enjoy it, especially if you look for the symbolism in it. And so that's it.
Perfect, perfect, amazing, wonderful as always. Thank you so much, Jen, for participating in today's video, and thank all of you for watching How to Read a Movie. This series is going to keep on going for a little while. Of course, if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment and let us know. Share these videos with the other art historians and cinephiles in your life, and don't forget to subscribe to the Wandering Art Historian YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Adrienne Lee. You know me as the Wandering Art Historian, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.